We have on the line one of the most conservative state representatives in office today. His name, Josh Miller. He represents District 66. That's Heber Springs, among other places. Hey, Josh, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, Paul. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm doing really well, too. I'm doing very well, too. Hey, congratulations, by the way, on getting that op-ed published over at foxnews.com. I thought it was really, really well done, and it illustrated that our priorities are completely out of whack.
Well, thank you for that. Those guys did a great job on that. And it is true. It's absolutely sickening to me to see what we've done. And when you do the research and discover that in our country, in Obamacare, Medicaid expansion states, nearly 22,000 truly vulnerable folks have died while waiting on Medicaid services. And man, when you stop and think about that, it'll just make you mad.
Yeah, because you have a lot of people believe that welfare is there for those who truly need it, who truly can't take care of themselves. And that they should be first in line. But instead, we have people who are able to work, choosing not to, who are young, who are a healthy population, and they're getting basically a program in Arkansas that's worth $2 billion a year. And out of that $2 billion a year, we can't help those on a waiting list that actually need care to stay alive?
You're absolutely right. I had on Facebook, a few days ago, a state senator here in our state took me to task a little bit and said, well, I failed to mention all that Governor Hutchinson has done for the waiting list. And so I'll go back and give him credit. He did kind of work out the deal to move the $8.5 million from the tobacco settlement fund over there to go towards the waiting list folks. Now, here's my deal, and I said this on Facebook when I was kind of arguing my point, is that we're going to move $8.5 million to help our really most vulnerable, our most needy population. Yet we're going to spend an additional $133 million in this year's budget on to buy insurance for able-bodied working-age adults.
Yeah.
And, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke, Paul.
You can't reconcile those two. You can't reconcile the increase. The priorities there are still out of whack. So, they did successfully try to take care of some of the people on this waiting list. They did do that. But why not all of them? Why not all of them? Well, it's because because we'd rather give money to make Blue Cross and Blue Shield rich than we would to help those that truly need the help.
Well, you are absolutely right. I'm telling you, folks. I mean, if anybody cares at all what this redneck state representative has to say, I am begging folks to please go vote for Jan Morgan. If you live in Senate District 5, go vote for Brian King. We've got to have some folks down there who see this the way that you and I do, and the way that you're talking here with our priorities are so out of whack. It is unbelievable. And until a lot can be accomplished when you set your priorities in the correct order.
Yeah.
And it's just really sad to see where we've gotten. And I don't know. I'm it's an issue I'm not going to let go, because we gave an additional $8.5 million and want to pat ourselves on the back and talk about how wonderful we are and look at all we've done, and yet we give an additional $133 million to the insurance companies, and then we tell 3,000 folks who have developmental disabilities and all this other stuff that, hey, we've run out of money and we can't help you.
It's almost as if Josh, that $8.5 million was there just to say that we did something. But
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is the day. It is the day. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the day where we will have election results sometime this evening. The polls are going to close at 7:30. You've got to go vote if you haven't voted today. Most people across the state are going to vote today. That tends to be what happens. I've waited so I can experience all the goodness for myself. I'm going to go and vote later today, and very excited to do that. The primaries, everything's been gearing up towards this primary season really since about November, December is kind of kicked everything off, and here we are. And what a wild journey it has been. We have had politicians making false claims on mailers. We've had, Jan Morgan was called a spirit of Jezebel. We've had a ton of things happen all across the spectrum. In that same time, Governor Asa Hutchinson started to openly criticize Conduit News and complain about how there are other stations around the state of Arkansas that are carrying this program and giving and disseminating information, and no one else's message is getting through. And this is from the governor of the state of Arkansas, who has the bully pulpit, right? The governor of the state of Arkansas, who's trying to save his political career today. He's hoping that the people of Arkansas will give him the nod, will give him the Republican nomination. And he is so worried, in fact, that Asa Hutchinson, who has gone on MSNBC and criticized Donald Trump, who has criticized Donald Trump's attempts to repeal Obamacare, the program that Asa somehow claims that he is against, but then bends over backwards to keep a socialist welfare program here in Arkansas that's from a socialist President Barack Obama. Yes, that Asa Hutchinson, that man, goes to Washington, D.C. yesterday to talk about the National Guard going to the border, and it somehow convinces Donald Trump to give him the endorsement. That's exactly right. President Trump endorsed Asa for governor yesterday, and I've got an analysis on this that you're not going to find anywhere else, okay? I'm going to put some of the pieces together, and I, for one, of course I'm sad. I think President Donald Trump was misled. I think there's pretty much a guarantee. But what we have here is Governor Asa Hutchinson is essentially leaving no stone unturned. No stone unturned. I don't think they have a clue how this election is going to turn out tonight at 7:30. I really don't. Because ask yourself, what good is a President Donald Trump endorsement 24 hours before the election? Somebody tell me. Now, does it do some good? Yeah, I'm sure it may get Asa some votes. Maybe. I think a lot of people have already voted. Plus, you have a lot of people who who already have their minds made up. Don't you think Asa Hutchinson would have loved to have gotten the endorsement of Donald Trump 4 weeks ago? I mean, what it says is Donald Trump had no interest. He had absolutely no interest in giving Asa Hutchinson his endorsement. Not at all. Joe, that's a good, maybe Asa had the confidence he was going to win, and maybe they have some polling that they don't like. I mean, it's extremely interesting, right? I mean, I'm just telling you right now, Governor Asa Hutchinson, who said back during the primary season that it's up to Arkansas to stop the Trump train, he's not on board And so it's just fascinating to me that now all of a sudden, no, I need this endorsement. And now, what does it say? Now it says that Asa is very afraid of Donald Trump voters turning out today and voting for Jan Morgan. That's what it says. And he knows that's the wild card here. He knows that the turnout and who turns out is up in the air. Nobody knows anything. Nobody knows who's turning out and who's not turning out, who's not staying at home, who's sick of the Asa Hutchinson ads every single day, inundating the airwaves, the same ones over and over and over, because Asa's such a likable guy, I mean, what does it say? Now, again, you're not going to hear this analysis anywhere else, but I'm going to give you a little bit of the backstory here and see how this happened, okay? This was planned. Now, this was a carefully planned strategy to get an audience before the President of the United States. And it was done so back when Donald Trump, they saw their opening back when Donald Trump decided to, keep his promises and say, hey, look, we're sending troops to the border. We're gonna do this. We're sending the National Guard to the border, And so here's your opening, okay? And so and a lot of people already told me that they knew this was coming. I mean, Ace is flying to D.C. the Monday before his primary election when he has a competitive opponent. What's he doing? Well, he's going to try to get the endorsement. Now, we also saw this coming because Senator Tom Cotton endorsed Asa a few days earlier. Senator Tom Cotton, I would speculate, I think this is not really an arguable point, Senator Tom Cotton, out of all of the Arkansas, delegation, has the president's ear the most. Senator Tom Cotton has done some amazing things. He has really stepped forward with this merit-based immigration system, taking a conservative idea and going and combating the liberal press. He has done a good job attempting to say, listen, we, the American people, get to decide who comes here. We get to set our immigration policy, and we definitely want people who already have skills, who are going to contribute to the economy, who are going to, basically benefit everybody here instead of, coming here and not having any skills and end up on a welfare program somewhere. And that's a bold thing to do in today's, politically correct world where, we just like to pretend that all cultures, multiculturalism, have equally good ideas, which is ridiculous and not true. So he's done a good job there. And so he's got a relationship with the president. And what I will tell you is, I think it's very obvious that if you look at Tom Cotton's endorsement of Asa, which was very disappointing. It was extremely disappointing because, you had Tom Cotton also endorse Asa's candidate a couple months ago, Breanne Davis, which was extremely disappointing as well. And Tom Cotton found out about how disappointed the rest of the state was. Check this out. Go to this Facebook page. Here's Tom Cotton's endorsement. Quote, I've worked closely with Asa for governor over the past 4 years. He's done an outstanding job and made Arkansas a better place to live and work. I'm proud to support him, and I look forward to continuing our partnership to serve Arkansans. Okay, he got absolutely inundated with people. I mean, you just read some of these comments here, how disappointed they are in Tom's endorsement here. Let's see here. Let's read a few of these. Yeah, I know Jan certainly posts, but I want to get to some of these. See, scroll down here. Let's see here. We have Tim, very disappointed. Cody, somebody named Cody that says I voted for you and was very proud of your hit the ground running approach to supporting conservative values, defending the Constitution, and protecting America. Then he goes on. Hang on a second. I can't get mine to pull up. Let's see more. Let's see. Somebody else writing, you won't have our votes again. Sir, this endorsement of Asa Hutchinson for governor, when the only clear choice is Jan Morgan, is an indirect admission of that the establishment has taken ownership of you. Okay, that's one. They go on like this for a very long time. So much so that I was contacted yesterday, by Tom Cotton's office, just saying, hey, at some point in the future, if you'd love to have Tom on, we'd love for Tom to come on the show. Tom has come on the show before, but it's been a long time, and I know, like, Senator Cotton is very busy. He's working on really, really big stuff for the people of Arkansas, like 30,000 feet stuff, right? And I get that. But I have a feeling that this whole situation can be explained very easily. And you know what that explanation is? Governor Asa Hutchinson keeps a staffed office in Washington, D.C., and he keeps the truth. He keeps the local truth from our federal delegation. There, I said it. And I think any objective observation, because I've talked with some of our local reps before, and they don't know about the corruption in Arkansas. They don't know what's going on. And it's extremely frustrating to me, especially when we have people that insert themselves into local elections when they don't have all the facts. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump does not know about all of these indictments that have gone on here in Arkansas. Obviously, he doesn't know about Michael Lamoureux, the governor's former chief of staff that he replaced with a Democrat. That took $120,000. Obviously, he doesn't know about preferred family health care and how ASA has refused to cancel the contracts, even though they're now on trial. And I've got an update on that here in just a minute, by the way, which is kind of proving my point, my speculation from last week as to what's going to happen with indictments after the primaries and how bad that's going to look. We have circumstantial evidence to support my claim in the news media today. This can all be explained by a buffer zone between ASA. It's like a firewall. And I really believe that's what it is. And I actually feel so bad for President Trump here because I think he's misled. But at the same time, Donald Trump, you talk about the tremendous job Donald Trump is doing right now. He's got a lot of stuff on his mind. Okay, and you have Asa that comes up there, asks for the endorsement, and he gets the endorsement. You think Donald Trump knows he's gone on MSNBC and criticized him? I mean, maybe Donald Trump does watch a lot of cable TV, but he watches more Fox News than MSNBC. Probably doesn't know all that. You know, this old article here back from 2016, you know, Governor Hutchinson up to Arkansas to stop Trump. I mean, I don't know. It's extremely interesting, to say the least. Extremely interesting, to say the least. I think that this is going to have a negligible effect. I think the fact that Asa had to get this endorsement, but he only got it 24 hours before the polls close, means that they are unsure about how things are going to turn out tonight between Jan Morgan and him. So what does that mean for you? It means you have to go vote. It means you have to call 10 people and take them to the polls, or 3 people, or 1 person. You want to grab somebody and say, "Hey, come and vote with me. Come exercise your right. Come claim your stake in this thing that we call government, in this attempt to govern ourselves, in this republic system that we have." That is trying to give the people a voice and also have systems and laws that put a check on power and what people can do to other people by force. I mean, just real quick, Donald Trump's tweet. Go back to Donald Trump's tweet. Donald Trump tweeted this: "The great governor of Arkansas is in a primary tomorrow. He has done an incredible job with a focus on lower taxes." Okay, do you think Donald Trump knows that was a lot of tax shifting going on? Or tax increases on the other side, like on tires? You think he knows that? No, Donald Trump doesn't know that. You think our federal delegation knows? Here's the thing. Do you think our federal delegation knows about the increased tax on tires? Do you think they know? Honest question. Do you think they know? Do you think they know about the new tax on digital downloads? Do you think they know? Now, they may know the digital downloads wasn't because of the internet sales tax, and some people in our federal delegation think that's a great idea. And that's a battle for another time, folks. The great governor of Arkansas, primary, done an incredible job with lower taxes. Border security. Do you think Donald Trump knows that Asa Hutchinson opposed sanctuary campus bills, where we are trying to direct our public universities to not have sanctuary campus policies? Do you think that Trump knows that? Do you think that Senator Tom Cotton knows that? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think they do. I don't think they know those facts about what Asa supported. Crime prevention. We have people getting out on parole because we don't have the money. We have people who are not serving their full sentences, and they're getting out. A friend of a personal friend of a family member of mine was attacked by a guy who was in jail for bank robbery, was released somehow, fled to Florida, was extradited back to Arkansas. This happened up in Fayetteville. You can look this up. And was somehow let out again. And so you have a gentleman who's going out working on his boat in his driveway. He gets, a gun. He gets accosted at gunpoint, forced back into his house. Him and his wife end up in a car at gunpoint, and the guy's driving him to the ATM to take out, to try to rob him. And it was only by the grace of God that he had a gun in the car. He shot the guy after the guy bit up his arm. He kicked him out. And this guy was, an elderly gentleman that did this. And this man should have never been let out in the first place. But he was arrested and let out and arrested and let out and arrested and let out. Now, you tell me how that is being tough on crime prevention. And there's a ton of other examples, by the way, as well. And then, of course, at the very end here, Asa loves our military and our veterans. I fully endorse Asa for governor. That's what Donald Trump says. I mean, obviously we know that, the military tax cut. Do we know about the raised taxes elsewhere? That it was just a measly $13 million that we had to absorb, a measly $13 million that we couldn't because we are so in a budget crisis in this state. No. Here's what I think. You want to know what I think? I think the staffed office in Washington, D.C. that Governor Asa Hutchinson has is an excellent firewall because I've got a feeling, and this is the honest truth. You think our federal delegation knows who Rusty Cranford is? Maybe. John Woods? Probably. Mike and Neal? Maybe not. Orrin Paris? Maybe. What about Hank Wilkins? No. What about Eddie Cooper? No. Do you think they know about these things? Do you think they are even following the coming indictments the way Arkansas media is following the coming indictments? No, because they're dealing with bigger things. They're dealing with things at the federal level. And I don't think they understand the culture of corruption that is existing right now. They don't understand that while they're trying to help Donald Trump and drain the swamp in Washington, D.C., it is unfortunate that they fail to recognize that back home in Arkansas at the Marble Palace, we have a swamp as well. And all you have to do is go read that latest Conduit for Action article to know that. And it's embarrassing is what it is. But, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter. Go vote. Take 3 people to vote. And let me tell you something. Regardless of what happens, Conduit News is going to continue to report the truth. I don't care who it offends. We're going to continue to support the truth about, report the truth about Arkansas corruption. And we're going to be a shelter for people who want honest government. Notice we can't even talk about conservative policy at this point in Arkansas because we just need our government officials to be honest with us and to stop stealing our money to enrich themselves. Back in a moment.
It's been said that freedom is in the DNA of every American, and I would say every Arkansan. Our nation and state are now in danger of letting our God-given freedom slip away by allowing government to be the arbiter of freedom. I agree with President Ronald Reagan, who said, and I quote, "In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem," end quote. Government is too large, too overreaching, and too corrupt. President Reagan also said, and I quote, "The most terrifying words in the English language are, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help,' end quote. This race is about voting for the candidate who best represents your interest, your family, and your future. For the last 2 terms in office, I've kept my promises to you, and I ask for your help to continue to represent our joint values of faith, family, and a protected future. I'm State Representative Dan Sullivan, and the choice is clear. I ask for your vote to continue our stand for freedom. Early voting is underway, and the election is May 22nd.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Lots of politicians talk about problems in government, but very few offer real solutions. Cole Peck wants to change that. Cole Peck will use his experience to make healthcare affordable. Cole Peck will push for more work.
its mother government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are 2 matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So regardless of what tonight holds, tomorrow on the program, I can promise you, I want to kind of dive into more on the corruption. You know, we talk a lot about the legislative corruption, but I think with what happened with these Judicial Crisis Network ads and Courtney Goodson filing suit in Northwest Arkansas and Central Arkansas, and the judge whose wife works for Goodson's husband and didn't recuse himself initially. Folks, I just think we need to talk about the corruption. You know, what we have here is a little bit of open the door real quick and shut it, which we saw, I guess, that there's corruption in the judiciary as well. That's what it looks like to me. And really, these Judicial Crisis Network ads that you're hearing, the only thing that they really are, I mean, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette basically presented the exact same information back in 2016. It was basically the exact same information back in 2016. It's just not Judicial Crisis Network took that information and, is putting it in front of everybody, and they're now seeing it. But the Gazette did the same type of thing. It was all investigative reporting. It was charting trial lawyers, and it was their record in the Supreme Court and how many times they lost, which was a lot. And then they started giving them money, and then look at how many times now all of a sudden they start winning in front of the Supreme Court. And that's all that this was. Anyway, so tomorrow on the program, for sure, we're going to, I just want to dive into that a little bit, explore that, and just let's talk about the corruption that's infiltrated the judiciary. And then, I guess it's 7 o'clock, Senator Brian King. We got Senator Brian King on 7:05, 7:33 or 7:45, I think. Jan Morgan will be back on. Folks, all of this, the most important thing, you just got to go vote. You have to go vote, right? This is where we get to have a say. And remember this, primaries are now the general election because everybody's a Republican now, pretty much. Even Democrats are now Republicans, as evidenced by, this whole primary between governor is really a Republican versus a Democrat. If you look at his record, higher spending, tax shifting.
They've got Conduit News that is on multiple stations across the state. It's pretty much an attack machine on what I'm trying to accomplish in this state. And their message is getting out, and no one else's message is getting through.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We're not actually fixing the problem, but it was coming to a boil. More and more people were finding out there are people dying on this waiting list while we're giving away money to insurance companies and to help the able to work. And in some cases, they don't even go to the doctor, and so that money, in my opinion,
Right.
if we're talking about a welfare program, is now wasted just to make an insurance company rich. And so it's like, okay, well, we got to do something because we do look like giant hypocrites. And that's the only thing that these leftist Republicans, when you put the pain point politics on them, when you actually do, the left is really good at making victims out of people. But when you have actual victims, we're not as eager to actually try to help those that really need the help.
You couldn't be more right. I mean, it's the research in that article just is really mind blowing when you stop and think all across the country how many folks have gotten basically the free insurance or whatever, and then as opposed to how many folks in these same states are still on the DD waiting list with the developmental disabilities. And I mean, I'm not, just to so everybody has a clear picture. I'm a quadriplegic from a spinal cord injury, and I look like an Olympic athlete compared to some of these folks on this waiting list. That is just how bad a shape they're in, and yet we tell them, hey, you've still got to wait. Now, if they were able-bodied and wanted free insurance and weren't working, buddy, we'd get them signed up in a heartbeat.
Wow.
And if that, I haven't met a taxpayer yet, Republican or Democrat or whatever, that doesn't look at the folks that are on the developmentally disabled waiting list and say, you know what, that's what my tax dollars are supposed to go to. Right there. I don't mind helping these folks. I don't mind giving them a hand up. Now we conservatives are sick and tired of seeing ours go to, we're like the.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go. Man, I'm telling you, what I was talking about last week, it looks like it may be kind of prophetic, folks. What I was talking about last week. Headline. This is the staff report. It's a staff report for. Okay, yeah. Hey, before we go on, I'm gonna do a little disclaimer. I'll do a little disclaimer of my own. If you are listening to because I'm just saying this because I'm responding to complaints. So if you're listening to our Northeast Arkansas station on KBTM 101.3 FM or 1230 AM, people are hearing these Cole Peck ads, okay? And they're saying there's a Cole Peck. Well, it's not me. It's not on our network. So we have a statewide network, and then we break, right? And when we go to break, we have our network breaks, we have our affiliate breaks. And our affiliate breaks play whatever they want to play in that time. So, disclaimer, has nothing to do with Conduit News Radio. Anyway, headline, Bentonville lobbyists' Missouri trial delayed. Boy, there's Rusty Cranford. Rusty Cranford wearing Hillary Clinton-colored orange. The trial of lobbyist Milton Rusty Cranford of Bentonville was delayed. It was delayed, you say? And he's on up in Missouri. Now, why was it delayed? They're saying that the trial is not going to commence until now, September 24th. Now, remember, John Wood's trial was delayed, and now Rusty Cranford's trial is delayed. Cranford awaits trial in federal court in Missouri on 1 count of conspiracy and 8 counts of accepting bribes. U.S. Magistrate David P. Rush granted an uncontested defense request for a trial delay until September 24th. The defense filed its motion Thursday and listed an expected, listen to this, an expected superseding indictment that will add charges as one reason for the delay. So the defense of Rusty Cranford gets a delay on the trial because there's another indictment, at least another indictment with more charges forthcoming here in Arkansas. Now, again, you think our federal delegation is aware of this? No, there's a buffer. Asa Hutchinson keeps an office staffed in D.C. It's a firewall. You guys need to start listening to Conduit News. That's all I can tell you. If you want to know the truth, you need to start listening to what we are reporting, because what we are reporting is what's really going on. Yeah, maybe reporting on, people who are in positions of power, but gosh, isn't that what the media is supposed to do? Speak truth to power? I mean, come on. It's like, you know what I feel? This is what I feel like. I feel like with some of this stuff, it's like Odysseus coming home after the long voyage, and he doesn't realize his whole house is on fire. His whole house is in disarray, and his wife's been betrothed to another man. It's like we are living under an oppressive government that is not accountable. I mean, why is the statewide media so favorable to Republicans here in Arkansas? Why? Why is the mainstream media so favorable to Republican leadership? Yet the mainstream media can't say a positive thing about any Republican nationwide in D.C. Something doesn't add up, does it? Yeah, well, we're back here at home, and we're living under this, and we're trying to get a handle on it. We're trying to expose the truth. And we have people that don't know. They just don't know. They are working on bigger things in D.C., and they do not understand what we are actually going through. Anyway, here is the rest of this. There is a superseding indictment that will add charges to Rusty Cranford. Obviously, Cranford is tied to Arkansas politicians. He's tied directly to, let's just read it. Cranford also played a part in 2 guilty pleas and 1 trial conviction of former Arkansas lawmakers. In each case, Cranford paid kickbacks in return for state grants, according to court testimony and documents. He does not face any charges in Arkansas because of what's going on in Missouri. Cranford has remained in custody in Greene County, Missouri. The lawmakers convicted of accepting bribes from Cranford in 2013 are Mike Neal, Hank Wilkins of Pine Bluff. Interesting. Hank Wilkins, the 4th of Pine Bluff, the former state senator, in his guilty plea, they mentioned a Senator A. Senator A. And you know who Senator A is? Jeremy Hutchinson, the governor's nephew. Now, folks, looks like these indictments are going to come out after the primary. And I think there's going to be a lot of embarrassed people. Well, no, I don't know. Depends on if you have any shame or not. If you have any self-respect. Because I think it's going to look pretty terrible. I think it's going to look really, really bad if there's information. If there's information that would have been very useful before a primary, then after a primary. Delay. I'm just telling you right now, there's some people that really just don't have all the facts here. And anyway, we're going to report on them when they come. Here's Arkansas Times a few days ago. And they weren't even sure. Arkansas Times wasn't even sure a few days ago that there was coming indictments. They just knew there was more charges. Listen to what Max Brantley writes, that the Rusty Cranford counsel expects more charges. That's all they were reporting. Accused of bribing public officials, Rusty Cranford, Arkansas, to help his company receive millions in federal Medicaid money for mental health programs. He has asked for a delay in a trial scheduled for June 11th in Springfield, Missouri, in part because he expects additional criminal charges. The court filing provides no clues about whether an expected new indictment could raise new charges about Arkansas politicians beyond those already named. We now have the answer to that. Again, this was on May 18th. Back to the Gazette article published today, we now know they are reporting that they are saying the defense filed its motion Thursday and listed an expected superseding indictment that will add charges as one reason for the delay. Does that encompass any Arkansas politicians? I mean, I got a feeling the answer is yes, that it will. In the meantime, you guys remember Ted Sewell? Ted Sewell was Medicaid guy up in North, had Medicaid company. Anyway, he got convicted or whatever. And when that happened, Governor Beebe ended all of the state's contracts. He ended the state contracts with Sewell's company, right? It's a fact. That's what happened. Governor Hutchinson has refused to end the contracts with Preferred Family Health Care, and they are involved in this case up to their eyeballs. And they're just trying to say, well, now there's a new president. They got new leadership, there's a new president. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll still keep doing business with these people. Do you how many people outside of those who are listening to this program know that Rusty Cranford tried to have a guy killed? It's according to reports, according to the government. Before he was arrested in February, carrying a revolver and, was it $17,000 in cash? And we have authorities who say that Rusty Cranford, this guy who is kind of the linchpin with all of this stuff, this lobbyist, they say that he approached a convicted felon. We don't know who the felon's name is. At least I haven't seen any follow-up on that. He approached a felon who was out and asked him tried to contract him to kill the guy in New Jersey who pled guilty back in December to this whole Preferred Family Health Care money laundering kickback scheme. How many of you know that? How many people outside of this program and a few people in the media know that? And it keeps conveniently getting left out of every report on Rusty Cranford, and it should be the first thing that's said. It should be the first thing that's talked about. They say they have recordings of him approaching this guy and saying that this witness, and that's what it is. It's a witness against him because he's copped a plea, needs to disappear. Now to just say, it's an isolated incident. It says, no, I mean, I honestly think this is the level people are willing to go when they get in so deep. This is Arkansas after all. Hello. Sometimes people forget that. Anyway, the big thing to do here, folks, is to go vote. I can't tell you that enough. You need to go vote. Let me tell you, the establishment is so worried. The establishment has done everything they can to protect Governor Asa Hutchinson. I mean, if you just take a long view of what we've been going through here, right? Asa Hutchinson refuses to debate Jan Morgan because, and you know what? These little people who claim to be conservatives working for the campaign or working for the governor's office and everything else. Come on. Let me ask you something. Let me ask you Asa Hutchinson's staff for something. If you ever ran for office, would you shy away from a debate? Let me just ask you. I don't think you would. I think you have more self-respect than that. I think you would have debated. But the governor doesn't want to. Why? Because it would not go well for him because he has no defense. He's trying to just steal the words. He's stealing. What does conservative even mean anymore? Asa says he's a conservative. Oh, okay. Well, I guess Mike Beebe was a conservative then. What does it even mean anymore? They just steal our words. They try to take our arguments, try to paint themselves, and it's extremely frustrating. The establishment's been against them. Employees from the governor's office bullying local campaign committees, saying you can't have Jan Morgan to speak, bullying them, trying to control them. What an embarrassment. I thought the Republican Party wasn't afraid of ideas. I thought the Republican Party wasn't afraid of being challenged. Apparently they are. You have Doyle Webb. You have Asa Hutchinson and Doyle Webb that have basically a chokehold on the state party. And what they say goes. Then you had the Chairman's Association. They passed a resolution that was a slap in the face to Doyle and the establishment. And they said, you will not tell our committees who we can and cannot have speak. Remember that? You remember when we had Jan Morgan being uninvited or threatened to be uninvited? We have the email from Douglas Smith, the governor's employee at the time. Now I think he works for the campaign. But at the time, he was making like $50,000 out of the governor's office, sending emails. And we have the email because, you know what? These liberty-loving county committee Republicans, when they were being threatened and oppressed, they knew where to turn. And they came to Conduit News and they said, we have this email. We'd like to get it out to you. We'd like to get it out to the people. And we gladly did it because it's the truth and people need to know what's going on. People need to understand the tactics that are happening. Case in point, on the weekend before a primary election, the chairman of the state Republican Party, Doyle Webb, sends out a fundraising letter for November, for the November elections. And in the letter, Doyle assumes that Asa is the winner and mentions Asa by name and says we need to support Asa. Look at this. Look at this Facebook post here. Click on the letter there, Joe. Let's pull this up. I'm going to read you this letter. And it was this was posted by Jim Hall. He got his daughter got this letter. Okay, we want the actual letter, the photo. And this is from Doyle Webb, right? He's sending this out to all Republicans. Recently, I mailed you a personalized 2018 Republican Party of Arkansas membership card, but I haven't heard from you. Maybe you never got it. Maybe you just have not had time to reply to my first letter. But I have to be honest, our slate of Republican candidates needs your help like never before. I hope you will send your 2018 membership contribution of $20 or $35 to our Republican Party of Arkansas headquarters today. Paragraph, 3. Our team of candidates, starting with Governor Asa Hutchinson and the rest of the statewide candidates, congressional candidates, and legislative candidates, are depending on the work of the Republican Party of Arkansas to run a winning campaign. Now, you see what Jan Morgan's up against? On the weekend, now this was Monday, on the week before the primary elections. Primary elections are not over. You have the Republican Party of Arkansas trying to sabotage, trying to engage in a psychological manipulation of the voter. They are trying to psychologically deceive the voter. We've got a great slate of candidates, starting with Asa Hutchinson, who has no opposition at all. This is the same thing that Doyle has been doing. When Doyle gives his nonpartisan, it's Republican, so it's clearly partisan, but, he's supposed to be neutral. When Doyle gives his neutral speeches, he starts by saying, we've got the third most popular governor in America, or we've got one of the most popular, whatever he says. Whatever it is. It's like, oh, I'm being neutral. No, you're not being neutral. You're giving campaign talking points. It is unbelievable how establishment you guys are. I mean, you guys are everything that you said the Democrats were. You guys are everything you said the Democrats were. I mean, you guys have no interest in shrinking government. The Democrats built a giant, nice, like Cadillac Escalade out of our government. And you were campaigning saying we're going to trade the Cadillac in and we're going to get something more affordable. And then you got into Cadillac and you're like, hey, this is pretty nice. You know what would be better, though? Like a Bentley. And that's what you guys have done. You guys have upgraded the Cadillac. You've actually grown it. And you say, well, we'll just do a better job at managing the big government. And we will never have the conversation, how much should government shrink, or we're going to keep the government the same size and let the economy grow. No, you will only have the conversation the Democrats want you to have, which is, how much are we going to grow government? I mean, it's going to grow. Trust us, it's going to grow. The argument we're going to have is, how much should it grow? And then a candidate comes along that actually is beholden to the platform, believes in the platform, and you guys lose your minds. You guys mobilize every type of oppressive force you have to try to keep the county committees in line. You guys send out intimidating emails. You guys call in favors and get people to make these veiled threats about, canceling venues and things like that. And folks, the Republican Party was supposed to be a party where you're not afraid to debate ideas. It's no surprise that from the beginning, Asa Hutchinson and his Asocrats, Asa Hutchinson and the Asocrats tried to silence Jan Morgan and muzzle her, and it's very consistent that he also won't debate her. How interesting. Your tactic has been to silence her from the beginning, and that's really a tactic to try to silence us, we the people. Now, we get to go have a choice. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I think it could go either way. I think Asa knows it could go either way. I think Asa's campaign staff knows it could go either way. I don't think they understand, because nobody really knows who's going to show up to vote today. If you're listening to this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, you have the power. It's time to go vote for the government that we want to have. We get to decide. Go vote today. I was going to say right now, but it's 6:52, almost 6:53. I don't think the polls are open yet, but they're going to stay open until 7:30 tonight. Go vote. This is Conduit News Radio. We'll be back in just a moment.
With public corruption and scandals in the news daily, Arkansans need someone with honesty and integrity in the state Senate. Mark Johnson is that man. Mark Johnson isn't a politician. He's a fifth-generation Arkansan and a successful small business owner. Mark Johnson will make ethics a priority and demand swift punishment for those who violate the public trust. Mark Johnson is pro-life and supports the Second Amendment. In the Republican primary, vote Mark Johnson for the state Senate. Paid for by Mark Johnson for Arkansas.
Arkansans need a true judicial conservative on the Supreme Court. David Sterling is that man. Sterling believes in the separation of powers in our government, and he will interpret the Constitution based on the original intent of the Founding Fathers. A member of the NRA and the Christian Legal Society, Sterling will serve Arkansans with honor and integrity as our next Supreme Court Justice. On May 22nd, vote David Sterling.
Paid for by Friends of David Sterling.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, so I was just looking in my area. Chances of rain today, 15 to 25%, that sort of thing. I don't know what it is across the rest of the state. Little pop-up thunder showers. It's very humid where I am. Here's the thing, conservative. Don't let the rain keep you at home. George Washington crossed the Delaware. You can go out in the rain and you can vote, okay? Let the rain keep the rest of the people home. That would be my advice to you. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. Give me a phone call. Send us a text message. We are up broadcasting live over at Facebook.com/Conduit News. That's Facebook.com/Conduit News. Hang on. Mark on Facebook writes, any day Paul can quote from the Iliad and connect it to the Marble Palace antics is a day for broadcasting excellence. Go Team Troy. Hey, it just came to me. I didn't think that analogy through all the way, but it just came to me. This is kind of the way it is. You're off in D.C., you're you're going on your quest, you're going on your journey, that's fine. Then you come home and, there's all this stuff you don't know. I mean, imagine how ridiculous it would be if Odysseus came back home and didn't realize that his kingdom was in disarray. That's really that would really complete this analogy, where we have people who don't understand just the level of corruption that's going on right under their nose, and how the people have been voting. Like, the very reason Arkansans have been voting for Republicans is because they've been voting for reform. They've been voting for change. Arkansas was the last Democrat state in the South, right? And Obama came, and we realized, hey, wait a second. And then there was just an effort to say, hey, you know what? Republicans, let's just forget about the Republican Party for a second. Let's just go and ask people how they feel about the issues, and then allow them to make, this is how I feel about these issues. It was okay, well, which party, let them make the decision of which party actually enables or agrees with them on issue by issue, on taxes, on regulations, okay, on socialized medicine, right, on abortion, on guns, and then present them with the arguments and let them, and that's what happened. And that's why people chose the Republican Party here in Arkansas, because of their platform, because they're popular, limited government, conservative ideas. And yet, it's almost been 10 years. By January of 2019, when the Arkansas legislature goes into session, it will have been 10 years since we started making gains in the, quote, conservative, end quote, movement. And we still have an income tax. We're still going to have an income tax. Think about that for a second. Does it really take a decade to change the state of Arkansas? After you've switched from blue T-shirts to red T-shirts, maybe switching from blue T-shirts to red T-shirts isn't enough. Maybe you have to have the right person with the red T-shirt on.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
They've got Conduit News that is on multiple stations across the state. It's pretty much an attack machine on what I'm trying to accomplish in this state, and their message is getting out, and no one else's message is getting through.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
The old sign that says, I don't oppose helping the needy, but I do oppose funding the lazy.
Wow.
And that's where we're at. Yeah,
the illustration you just gave there, it's an embarrassment. To look at somebody who is developmentally disabled and to tell them, can you imagine if you told them that? Well, if you could just get better and be able to take care of yourself, we'd give you free insurance. I mean, that is wrong. I mean, that is absolutely morally wrong.
It's the truth. I mean, we tell these folks, oh man, we're sorry, we're just out of money, we can't we can't do any more for you. And then again, we take every stinking person right now that's able-bodied and unemployed and wants free insurance. We just slobbered all over ourselves to get them signed up.
Really?
And it's ridiculous.
I don't think history is going to be kind to this entire program. I think there will come a day when the people of Arkansas recognize that this entire thing was the biggest scam to make insurance companies and hospitals actually very, very wealthy. I think it's all going to come out eventually. It will be common knowledge at some point. History is not going to be kind to the people who perpetuated this scam and fraud on the people of Arkansas. We're talking with State Representative Josh Miller. Now, on that subject, Josh, you did bring up Brian King, and you brought up Jan Morgan. I'm glad you did. But with Senator King, he seems to be always at the forefront here of predicting what they're going to do next, or predicting the problem. And then, of course, the leadership, they use their carefully crafted language, and they always figure out a way to, keep the gravy train going and protect those. But we've seen some cracks in their armor. We've seen some of these guys, for example, if you look at, what John Woods was doing with these healthcare entities. You look at Preferred Family Healthcare. You look at Hank Wilkins. You look at Eddie Cooper. You look at Rusty Cranford. You look at these lobbyists, and it does seem to be that there's a reason they didn't want to pass Brian King's Medicaid disclosure bill, and it's because there's a lot of people down there, it appears, that are getting money, extra money, from this healthcare industry. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, you're 100% correct. I ran Brian's bill in the House. He got it passed through the Senate last year, and actually his opponent up there for that Senate seat was the chairman, was opposed to it, and they kept saying we don't see a reason why we need this. We don't see a need. This is overreach. This is far-fetching. All this kind of stuff. And then, man, look at what's happened. I mean, it's these guys are. We've said it before. It's the Medicaid mafia. You got a bunch of them that have figured out how to make a killing off of Medicaid dollars. They're doing it. They've been doing it for years. I think it's maybe gotten a little bit more difficult to do it without getting caught now, which is a good thing. But there's all this. The paper's been full of the headlines with former Senator Woods and all this other stuff with that college up there, and that is what it is. I know Brian, Senator King. You haven't seen any of his stuff even be questionable, and furthermore, had his bill gotten passed, we would be catching a lot more of this stuff, and either catching it or it would be stopping because they know that they would be caught. But again, we can't get that out of committee because,
I remember the committee audio. There was some outlandish. There was a lot of squirming.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Excuse me, welcome. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. Thank you so much for being with us. Today is the day. You have to go vote. You have to take 3 of your friends. You have to take 5 of your friends. You got to take your whole family. I mean, you know, if they're over 18 or they're 18 or older. Hey, welcome to the program. Back again with us, Senator Brian King spends the morning with us. Senator King, thanks for coming back on, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on today, Paul.
So here it is. It's a big deal. I guess yesterday I got to interview attorney Matt Bishop, and this directly affects your race, I think. He's filed a lawsuit against the Ozark Waste Management, district because of what they've done to the people of your district, putting this new tax on them.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's a good day for the people in my district and the people to have a voice from the insiders in Little Rock who basically absolved themselves of any responsibility through legislation and through a lawsuit that they never even got a day in court. And so now the people finally are going to get a day in court.
Yeah, I think, and I'm really excited about that. We had a lot of insight on that when I did the interview. He was talking about how if you're going to tax somebody, first of all, it needs to be for a service, and a service is not paying off debt or paying off bondholders. That's not a service to the people. And then not to mention, if you're going to tax somebody, it needs to originate from the legislature, not from the judiciary. And so they call it a fee. We've seen this down at Little Rock, before, Brian, where people try to raise taxes and call it a fee, and then put their hands up in the air and be like, it's a fee, not a tax.
Yeah, and once again, the service is to the insiders in Little Rock. It's to the agency people. It's to the bondholders. It's not to the people. I mean, it's the people paying for a service for them to get their money back. And, that's just not right. And continually, time after time after time, we've seen the insiders down there use deceptive ways, use special language to help get their way. And just like today, my opponent says that his yes vote on there didn't matter. Well, the reality is, through testimony, we found out that ADQ in cleanups before had never used a civil action to pay for the cleanup. Okay, and understand ADQ was responsible because they did not step in and do anything about the landfill, even though they had multiple opportunities of it. So then we find out the only case, and then they sunset the language. But it's, once again, and then they won't answer questions. I've sent questions to now Commissioner Key. He has declined to answer any questions or show up for the people. I've sent questions to Senator Jeremy Hutchison to answer questions about his involvement in it. In a landfill issue that is not even near his Senate district, he has refused questions. So, once again, if these people have nothing to hide, why are they not answering questions?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to stick the people with something, why do you not want to talk to them and answer them why?
I think Senator Jeremy Hutchison, he's not talking to anybody these days. Matter of fact, we now know that the trial of Milton Rusty Cranford has been delayed till September 24th because the defense is expecting another indictment with new charges or more charges, so they want to wait. And so, yeah, I don't think Jeremy Hutchison is talking to anybody right now. We're talking with Senator Brian King. As you campaign, Senator, and this is the last, the last day for people to go vote, what are you hearing from your constituents? What is important to them?
Yeah, I think the truth matters when it comes to who represents them. And I think if you look at this campaign time after time after time, you see that in the GIF part of where we had funds go out to communities. I have not been in the headlines, have not been involved in any of it. I sit there and drew a line and said, you know what, I don't even need to do business with any of the entities that receive GIF, and then how somebody else handled it. And then not just how they handled it, but how they handled it once it came out. And so, I don't know, clear difference there. If you look at a clear difference on spending, one person says they're for less government, and the other one says they're for less government. Now, I have not voted for the unsustainable spending increases down there, and, Bob has. Okay? If you look at the deceptive language and look at a $20 million tax increase that was snuck through an appropriation bill. Somebody participates and rubber stamps the process. I clearly don't. And so that puts me at an issue out there of how they say one thing, but once you get people in front, once you look at all the corruption going on down there, if you look at the leadership down there who looks out after the insiders, do you want to participate and rubber stamp a process down there? And, I'm not part of that. So that's what's getting out there a clear message, especially more so up here in Carroll and Madison County than the western part of the district where you see the news coverage is out there putting out the truth about both our records.
So you say, and I've seen those Carroll County, Madison County reports. They are putting out the truth. But what about Crawford County? What's the news cycle down there? Are they covering some of that stuff as well, or are they not covering it at all?
Yeah, if you look at the Southwest Times, they came out with an article, and where Representative Ballinger continually says, well, no state money was used in the land deal that he put his approval on and helped make happen. Well, it came out in the Southwest Times here recently, yes, there was tax dollars used on that. So once again, it's a total misleading that you go out there and say one thing, and eventually when people get down to the truth and put it out, and then, no comment. I mean, so we're, the people down there are starting to see the message. I've seen time after again how people come up and say, hey, wait a minute here. I don't know about this. And, you continually see the governor and his people down there continually to push their candidate because I've spoke out against Jeremy Hutchison. I've spoke out against what I've seen down there. And the insiders don't want that. They don't want somebody coming in there and telling them, just like, President Trump goes in and tells them. They don't want that. They don't want somebody upsetting their party down there, and they want their message out and their narrative and their connections to go forward. And if you look at the big money connections with Medicaid, with the big insurance companies, with this much more expensive waste, fraud, and abuse-riddled Medicaid expansion program, that if we'd have done just what we call traditional top Medicaid, how much it would have covered these people, saved taxpayers, but it wouldn't have put billions of dollars in the pockets of big insurance companies, who then turn around and raise your rates and make you work harder, pay more for less coverage.
So the governor came out, Senator King, and endorsed Bob Ballinger. And there's an interesting article, maybe one of the best comprehensive article over at Conduit for Action, that ties the support of your opponent, the governor's support of your opponent, to the fact that he has no plan to curb the corruption, but you actually have proposed plans and ideas.
And he's opposed it.
Yeah, and he's opposed
it. The leadership's always opposed it. I mean, we've had corruption after corruption, and you see nothing down there from the leadership that sits there and says, we need to do something or curb this or something. They don't say anything.
It's frustrating. I mean, but I think that's a really good dot to connect here. You have been on the forefront, like you said, and you are trying to stop the corruption, and the governor is opposing you, and he has no plan. And matter of fact, I mean, some of the people that are closest to him and vote the way he needs them to, we're now finding out, I mean, it's an open, are some of the most corrupt. And so you got to scratch your head here and think, what kind of system is the governor comfortable with, or the people that support the governor, which I'm now calling asocrats, because I think it's a new, some hybrid brand of something that wouldn't fly in any other Republican state, but it's flying here. The stakes are huge. I feel, I mean, I really for the first time, I've got a new perspective on. I really feel like the people are being misserved, Brian. I mean, I really do, like to their detriment, and so we've got to have people out down there exposing what's really going on.
Yeah, and that's what they don't want. They don't want anybody that bucks the system, and they want the system to continue because they benefit off the system, clearly. I mean, it's just time and time again you see where, like what came out on the Arkansas Times, that Senator Hutchison was on the payroll of these Medicaid entities, just like I had been saying for years there was something going on. And so did you see anything from the leadership or something that said he needs to answer questions or do anything?
No.
Nothing. But you saw nothing.
And we still have those preferred family health care contracts throughout the state. We've got those going for us. I mean, why? Why do we still have those contracts if they're on trial up in Missouri? You know, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, and nothing because it may be that there's several people have had their hands in things that shouldn't have been happening down there.
Well, I mean, it's already spread. It's spread to Democrats and Republicans alike. And how many? The question really is how many more people are consultants for Medicaid companies, or how many more attorneys are passing bills for clients? And there's a lot of attorneys down there. So how rampant is this? And if there's a loophole in Arkansas law, which there is, to be able to do this, Linda Collins Smith tried to address that, and obviously the governor's opposing her reelection. The attorney situation is a big deal. You could be a consultant or you can be attorney. I think the feds, though, see that as a violation of federal law. Maybe there's a state loophole, but I think that's why the feds are now looking into this.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're looking into a lot of things, and like I said, the governor and all them leadership, they just act like nothing's going on. I mean, it is just so strange, and yet we spend several $1,000s. These guys want to spend several $1,000s of your tax dollars to keep the feds from getting their records.
Yeah, that's another point. Yep, that's exactly right. The federal government wants the Bureau of Legislative Research documents. The Bureau hires outside counsel to essentially deal with those requests, and it's very frustrating, Brian. I'm really proud that you decided, number one, to run for re-election. And I know this is going to be a very important race for that, for this whole state, but it's an important race for the people of District 5. I know this landfill issue is huge, and I know exposing, waste and corruption is huge. And I know you want people to get out and go vote today, don't you?
Absolutely. That's what's going to show up in what happens today is who shows up to vote. That's what it is. You can do the polls. You can talk about momentum, which you've had. We've talked about everything, but it's going to be about, who shows up. And unfortunately, sometimes you have people that are engaged and think this way or that way and believe, but you know what? It's about getting out to vote and showing what direction you want government to go.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, hey, best of luck to you, Brian, and good luck out there, and I hope everything goes great for you at 7:30 tonight.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
All right, thank you. Senator Brian King, everybody, speaking out against corruption, man. That guy is, he's like John Wayne. I mean, seriously. Brian King is the John Wayne of the Marble Palace. I mean, he really is. You always are going to know where he stands, and he's not able to be bought. He's not able to be enslaved by that system down there because he's a farmer and he's got a farm to get back to. Anyway, so check it out. If you're in District 5, you got to go vote today. You have to go vote. Okay, we're going to take a break. You guys got to go vote. The whole state, not if you're just in District 5, the whole state's got to go vote. What am I talking about? Everybody's got to go vote today. You got to take 3 friends with you. You got to, you get a vote. You get a vote. Everyone gets a vote. No, sorry, that was really bad. Everybody has got to go vote. You got to take 10 of your friends with you. Come on, everybody in your sphere of influence. When you get up to go to the water cooler at your office, okay, and you see that, you ask him not if he's a liberal or whatever. You can kind of tell. Sometimes you can tell. I mean, what am I being? Look, stereotypes exist, Joe. You can make fun of me all you want, but stereotypes exist because people reinforce them every single day. And I mean, we're all interacting with each other, and we're kind of taking, we all have memories, and we're just kind of taking notes. We're taking notes. We're like, oh, huh, okay. All right, we're going to take a break, folks. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
money, power, prestige, essence, essence, ace. Available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From the Nata Rhino collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like essence of bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yes. Very good job, it's Pablo Harrell on that parody. All right, I'm gonna highlight this again, folks, because this is what the stakes are. You know what the stakes in this election are? Primary across the state of Arkansas. These are the stakes. Asa and the corruption state. There's a culture of corruption at the state capitol. Some are full participants. Many others who walk the halls of the capitol excuse it, the culture of corruption. Or they knowingly tolerate the corruption, not wanting to offend those in power. Arkansas news is full of stories of cronyism and public corruption, convictions, guilty pleas, ongoing investigations. Legislators, former legislators, state employees, lobbyists, and a judge grabbed the money and are now felons or under investigation. And if you believe the persistent whispers in the state capitol, many others have offered testimony in hopes of avoiding indictment. What the public knows so far about corruption in the state capitol is shocking. But what will we learn from ongoing investigations? And what corruption will we never know? We'll never know about, as investigators toss some politician crooks back to build a better case against other politician crooks. Which politician will be found out next? Governor Asa Hutchinson has responded to the widespread corruption in the headlines with nothing more than a sad face. The governor sits silent while ethics bills are defeated without his support, while those close to him are investigated or indicted, while his cronies are exposed for questionable ethics, and while state employees are convicted of stealing funds meant to feed children. Not even Jan Morgan and her entry into the race, it's made Asa move very far to the right on many issues. But not even Jan Morgan has gotten Asa to pose as a reformer on ethics. Morgan's background includes being an award-winning investigative television journalist, exposing government waste, fraud, and abuse. And she wants to bring smaller and transparent government to the state. Is Asa oblivious to what is going on? Protecting someone or just doesn't care as long as he gets his way. Asa, the governor, doesn't sound like Asa, the former prosecutor. Governor Hutchinson is trying to defeat both senators who filed ethics reform legislation back in 2017. The two senators are Linda Collins Smith and Brian King. They're from Asa's own party. They're both Republicans. Sure, these two senators also opposed the governor's Obamacare Medicaid expansion, but other senators also opposed the program and did not get an opponent from Asa. Senator Linda Collins Smith filed a bill to stop legislators who are attorneys or consultants from representing their clients before the legislature. Her bill would have directly affected the governor's family. The bill would have affected Asa's lawyer, legislator nephew, Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, who mixes business with politics. Who did Governor Hutchinson endorse to try to unseat Senator Collins Smith? Well, Representative James Sturch, who spent much of his time while he was a House member being employed by a lobbyist all the way in DeQueen, Arkansas, when he lives in Batesville or Independence County. Then you have Senator Brian King. Senator King filed a bill to require Medicaid providers to disclose their financial relationships with public officials. Medicaid's a huge cash cow that's been raided by corrupt politicians and lobbyists and is at the center of corruption investigations. Shouldn't we know if politicians are getting a cut of the action? Who did the governor endorse to try to unseat Senator King? Well, that would be Representative Bob Ballinger, who helped kill Senator King's ethics bill in the House committee and who was busy pushing legislation to try to close records from the public view. Ballinger was trying to close records at the same time his law firm was representing Ecclesia College and trying to keep the public from seeing how Ecclesia spent public money. Records that could show the involvement of other public officials in corruption. I'll have more on this next. Also in the next half hour at 7:45, we'll be talking with Republican gubernatorial candidate Jan Morgan will be with us.
They've got Conduit News that is on multiple stations across the state. It's pretty much an attack machine on what I'm trying to accomplish in this state, and their message is getting out, and no one else's message is getting through.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
We would be catching a lot more of this stuff, and either catching it or it would be stopping because they know that they would be caught. But again, we can't get that out of committee because,
I mean, I remember the committee audio. There was some outlandish. There was a lot of squirmy legislators. I mean, you had, I believe it was, I think it was State Representative Michelle Gray, who's a huge fan of Conduit News, by the way, huge fan. And she said that it was too broad, that the Medicaid disclosure bill was too broad, and then her argument changed, and she said it's not broad enough. I was just like, well, that's weird. Do you remember that being too broad, but then not broad enough?
It was too broad yet too narrow.
Or something like that.
Basically, we just need to vote against it.
I
do remember that. It was too broad. Well, no, it's not broad enough. So anyway, I mean, when you've got legislators that are sitting there that are looking at that and they're saying, we don't need to support this. We don't need to be finding out who's got conflict of interest or anything like that. I don't know what you say about them. And I know it makes it difficult to work with. That's all I say.
Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate. It's always good to talk to you, Josh, and you always just kind of tell it like it is, and that is what is so refreshing right now. We were just talking about how the difference between politicians of old and politicians of today, and I think people just want you to shoot them straight, and I think more and more people are getting a better radar detector when you're not being real with them. And that's certainly good, I think, for our republic. So, Josh Miller, I appreciate it, sir. Good luck to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks a lot, Paul. I appreciate what you do and Conduit, and God bless you. Everybody go vote. Vote right.
All right. Thank you, State Representative Josh Miller, everybody. Here he said, please get out there. Josh Miller saying, please get out there and vote for Jan Morgan. And if you live in District 5, vote for Senator Brian King. And I would go a step further. You've got other primaries as well.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us this morning as we kind of round the corner here. It's Election Day. You got to go vote. You got to get out and vote. We're trying to cap corruption. Today is the day. We've been waiting on this for months, folks. We've been waiting on this for months. Now, here's the thing. If you want to know, yes, and we reported on this at 6, okay? We reported on this at 6 o'clock. So go and get the podcast or go listen when you get to work on the, Donald Trump with a last-minute endorsement of Asa Hutchinson. This is after Asa was in D.C. About the National Guard being sent to the border. This was all coordinated, but not coordinated by Donald Trump. This was a favor that was called in, and in all likelihood it was called in by Tom Cotton, who has the ear of the president. And you've got to look at the optics here. You got to look at the optics just real quick, briefly. Tom Cotton endorsed Asa last over the weekend, was just decimated on Facebook with people just saying, I can't believe you would do this. Why would you interject yourself in here? And then, of course, now you have this last-minute Trump. Now, ask yourself this question, folks, and this is going to tell you something. Do you think Donald wanted to give Asa the endorsement? I mean, if he would have wanted to, if he would have sought it out, it would have been 4 weeks ago where it could actually have been used as an advantage. You could have made mailers. You could have made TV commercials. It's too late to do all that. No, what this says is they are leaving no stone unturned because they don't know who's going to win tonight. They don't know who's going to win, Jan Morgan or Asa. That's what this says. And so Donald Trump is, I promise you, because I don't think our federal delegation is aware of the level of corruption that is surrounding the Marble Palace, that is being exposed almost on a daily basis in the headlines. Obviously, he doesn't know any of that. As a matter of fact, let's get to that, okay? It is going to be close. I think we should all go to the polls and assume that. We don't know what's going to happen. You know what? Just go vote your conscience and just know that there is a sovereign God who is over and whose will be done when it comes to who is in positions of power, okay? And we are blessed to be in a system of government where we have the choice, where we actually get to participate, where it is a part of our citizenship. It is a part of our responsibility in our government to go and do this. So go and do it with a joyful attitude, and just know that wherever the chips fall, okay, wherever the chips fall, there is a higher authority and control to all of this. And I'm preaching it myself because that's the way I struggle to behave that way during elections. Just so you know. All right, real quick, let's talk about this. This is the information I don't think our federal delegation puts together. I don't think that. See, you got to understand something. The governor has an office in Washington, D.C., and has put up a firewall, and there's information that Conduit News disseminates to you that they simply just don't get because the establishment's not communicating. They are working on bigger things, okay? While the people back home, though, are suffering under this corrupt Arkansas government led by Republicans. It is a shame what's going on here locally. Let's talk about Senator Jake Files for a second. You think these people know who Senator Jake Files is? You think the president knows? No, not at all. As evidence of wrongdoing piled up against Senator Jake Files, there were calls for his resignation from Democrats and from some Republicans. But months went by, and not a peep from Governor Asa Hutchinson. Eventually, Files pled guilty to wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. Only after the guilty plea did Asa put on a sad face and call for Files to resign. Unrelated to the accusations to which Files pled guilty, the public already knew Files received an $80,000 payment from a nursing home interest after a favorable vote. And the public knew about a $30,000 loan Files got from a lobbyist. Legislation was even filed and passed to stop it from happening again. But Hutchinson stood by his pal Files, who now has pled guilty. Then you have John Woods. Governor Hutchinson hosted a fundraiser for the re-election of John Woods just 18 days before Woods unexpectedly dropped out of the Senate race. Woods was eventually convicted on multiple counts of corruption involving kickbacks from sending state general improvement funds to Ecclesia College. There had already been rampant rumors that the FBI and IRS agents were investigating Ecclesia and Woods and about who had been interviewed. Even if we had heard persistent reports of the investigation, even if we had heard reports, how did Asa not know? Well, and there's another article that suggests, of course, Asa Hutchinson knew. Asa knew about John Woods' obsession to funnel state money to Ecclesia College. In Woods' corruption trial, it was revealed Woods had, without success, approached Hutchinson in July 2015 about diverting marijuana proceeds to Ecclesia College. Opposition to the plan was it being marijuana. If Asa cared anything about ethics and good government, John Woods was an odd choice. Woods was the architect of a constitutional amendment sold as an ethics amendment, but was a Trojan horse. The amendment made it harder for people to pass ethics legislation, claimed to establish term limits when it was weakening them, and set up a system to get big raises for Woods, Asa, and other politicians. Woods was also the author of legislation to make it nearly impossible for the Ethics Commission to penalize or even investigate a politician who hides campaign or personal finance transactions as long as the politician modifies his report within 30 days of being caught. Yet, John Woods had the support of Asa Hutchinson. Then we have Michael Lamoureux, the governor's chief of staff. He chose Senator Michael Lamoureux as his chief of staff, and Lamoureux had to resign soon after it was discovered that the Arkansas Faith and Freedom Coalition paid him $120,000 as a consultant. Much of the organization's money came from tobacco interests in nursing homes and lobbyists, which is an odd assortment of financial backers for an organization whose name refers to faith in its title. Asa never criticized Lamoureux, whose name keeps popping up, by the way, in stories about cozy relationships with attorney politicians and big money. Then his nephew, Jeremy Hutchinson, is one of Asa's go-to guys in the Senate. The senator has not been accused of a crime, but his name has already come up in the guilty plea of former Senator Hank Henry Wilkins and is identified as Senator A in the plea. Oh, and by the way, Rusty Cranford's trial, folks, if you don't know, has been delayed until September. Do you know why? Because the defense requested a delay, citing a new indictment to come with new charges. Senator Hutchinson's actions as a legislator are blurred with his actions as an attorney/consultant. He was one of the reasons Senator Linda Collins Smith filed her bill to keep attorneys from representing clients before the legislature. Then you have Ecclesia College, whose president pled guilty in the kickback scheme with former Senator John Woods and Micah Neal, received $700,000 in general improvement funds. Where did the money go? We don't know. Governor Hutchinson has failed to insist that the required audit be done on how our money was spent. Our question is, would others be implicated in the scheme if the audit was done as required? Then you have preferred family health care. They received a huge Medicaid contract from the state thanks to its president bribing legislators. This is a fact. It is now a fact this happened. It is in plea deals. It is in the guilty pleas. We know this because of the guilty plea of Hank Wilkins. Has Asa moved to terminate the contracts with Preferred Family Health Care? No, he sees no problem with the company benefiting from bribery. His Department of Human Services says it's all better now. They've got a new president. It goes on and on and on. It's very frustrating. There is at least the appearance of impropriety by the governor when he gives a job to a legislator who has voted for ACE's programs. Governor Hutchinson has rewarded some supporters in the legislature with jobs. He doesn't even wait until the legislator's term is over. He gets them a job, and quickly they begin to make more money, leaving a vacancy in office. You have Representative Kelly Link. You have Representative Bill Gossage that Asa gave jobs to. And if Asa wins re-election tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and his candidates James Sturch and Bob Ballinger lose, how long will it be before they get an offer to work for the governor? Governor Hutchinson is being sued by a former state employee who claims he was fired because he would not hire an unqualified person wanted by the governor. The implication being that giving the job to a specific person was a favor to some donor. Asa denies any involvement in the incident. We only mention it here because the positions Asa filled with legislators were positions that were set aside for specific individuals and not open to the public based on merit or qualifications. Now we also have unrestricted discretionary spending that this governor has participated in. And he's totally opposed to general improvement funds now that everybody's going to jail over it, but he's just wants all that general improvement money to come to him. It's up to you today, ladies and gentlemen. It's up to you. How much more will you endure before rising up to demand a return to the ideal of office holders at all levels of government being servants of you, the people? How much more corruption will you tolerate before you turn up the heat so much that politicians are forced to accept stronger ethics restrictions? How long before you cut their purse strings so they don't have huge piles of your money to give to their cronies? Today is election day. Go vote, grab 10 of your friends, and go vote. We've got to take a break. Back in a moment.
With public corruption and scandals in the news daily, Arkansans need someone with honesty and integrity in the state Senate. Mark Johnson is that man. Mark Johnson isn't a politician. He's a fifth-generation Arkansan and a successful small business owner. Mark Johnson will make ethics a priority and demand swift punishment for those who violate the public trust. Mark Johnson is pro-life and supports the Second Amendment. In the Republican primary, vote Mark Johnson for the state Senate. Paid for by Mark Johnson for Arkansas.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Arkansans need a true judicial conservative on the Supreme Court. David Sterling is that man. Sterling believes in the separation of powers in our government, and he will interpret the Constitution based on the original intent of the Founding Fathers. A member of the NRA and the Christian Legal Society, Sterling will serve Arkansans with honor and integrity as our next Supreme Court Justice. On May 22nd, vote David Sterling.
Paid for by Friends of David Sterling.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
It's been said that freedom is in the DNA of every American, and I would say every Arkansan. Our nation and state are now in danger of letting our God-given freedom slip away by allowing government to be the arbiter of freedom. I agree with President Ronald Reagan, who said, and I quote, "In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem," end quote. Government is too large, too overreaching, and too corrupt. President Reagan also said, and I quote, "The most terrifying words in the English language are, 'I'm from the government and I'm here to help,' end quote. This race is about voting for the candidate who best represents your interest, your family, and your future. For the last 2 terms in office, I've kept my promises to you, and I ask for your help to continue to represent our joint values of faith, family, and a protected future. I'm State Representative Dan Sullivan, and the choice is clear. I ask for your vote to continue our stand for freedom. Early voting is underway, and the election is May 22nd.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
You got to go vote. Today is the day. You're out of time. This is it. Vote today. Take 10 people with you. We want to vote to cap corruption. Joining us now, we have Republican gubernatorial candidate Jan Morgan is back with us on the line. Good morning to you, Jan.
Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are things where you are? How does the campaign feel right now? Because we're in the home stretch.
We are in the home stretch. Well, I'm one of those people that's got to get out and vote today because, believe it or not, I did not early vote. So that's on my agenda of things to do today. It's feeling good. The people have worked so hard, and I continue to. I'm still looking at videos of people on social media and all the things they're doing. And I'll tell you one that just touched me tremendously yesterday. As I was going down the newsfeed on Facebook, and I saw a guy standing in the rain on an overpass. Somebody else was shooting the video, and he was waving one of the big, huge Jan Morgan signs, standing on that overpass in the rain at people that were driving under the overpass.
Wow!
Just trying to remind people to vote, and I said, "Wow!" And I don't know. I don't even know who it was. I couldn't tell. And the person who shot the video didn't know who it was. They were just thought it was fascinating. They were driving down the road and said, "Oh my gosh, look at this guy!"
Yeah.
And so, people have worked so hard that I saw on social media at 2:00 this morning. Wayne Beach, who's been working so hard, I saw him. He made a post. He said, "I just stopped for some coffee to take a break, and about to get back out and put out some more signs, and get ready for another big day." And I said, "Wow."
Yeah, this really is a lot of momentum is on your side. A lot of enthusiasm is on your side, and there's really not as much enthusiasm on Ace's side because Ace is having to get his supporters to, he's having to get people to support really increased spending and tax shifting and raising taxes and things like that. He's having to get them to support a lukewarm. And Reagan said to paint in bold pastel colors. And Jan, that's what you've done with this campaign is to have just loftier ideas about what Arkansas can be.
And it's also just that people are feeling emboldened and like there's a chance, to take their state back. And it's not as much about me as it is that the people are fed up. And Paul, a lot of that has just been educating people on what's really going on in their state government. Conduit's played a big role in that. And there were very few, but a few other supporting
Hang on a second.
facts too. And
we lost you there for a second, kind of cutting in and out.
Okay.
So say what you were saying about the education part. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is that people are finally getting educated on what's going on in their state government, and they're determined to get control of their state again. And Conduit has played an important role in that, putting truth out there for the people. And there are maybe a couple of other news outlets that have actually gone out there and put real facts out for the people so that they can have the information they need. And people are waking up, and that's exciting. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I know it absolutely is. It's a really like I said, like a lot of momentum. And you have obviously made your presence in this race. Jan Morgan has made the governor pivot to the right. He had to abandon his plans to increase our taxes on groceries, or at least abandon it for now. He had to come out and say he was against bathroom bills. He had to come out and say, he was for bathroom bills. He had to come out and say, the stuff about sanctuary, cities are trying to be tough on illegal immigration when he's opposed, the sanctuary city. But he's done all these things, had to pivot to the right. And I don't think anything illustrates that more than him flying to Washington, D.C. and somehow convincing Donald Trump to send out a tweet endorsing him. And the tweet is extremely just not factual in terms of what I think Ace has accomplished. And, here's a guy, Jan, who goes on MSNBC and is criticizing Trump on MSNBC during the Obamacare fight last year. And now he has to go so far to the right that he's now going to a president I don't believe he really supports and likes and asking for the endorsement. What are your thoughts to this last-minute, leave no stone unturned attempt here?
You just have to sit there and laugh when I found out yesterday that he was heading to Washington, D.C. I thought that's immediately what I thought. I said, I know what he's doing. He's going to D.C. to grovel and beg for an endorsement from President Trump. And, the irony of it all is that here he was, the final day of the election, and he is rushing off to D.C. to grovel and beg for an endorsement. And where's Jan Morgan? Jan Morgan is still in Southwest Arkansas with the people, talking with the people and listening to the people. So I think that speaks volumes about the desperation of his campaign. That he needed something to help him, pull him over the top and help him win this race. And so at the same time, I was looking at the invitations, and someone pointed out to me the invitations for our watch parties. Mine says you're invited to my watch party. His says you're invited to his victory party. So, he's, just the arrogance of it all. It was
and to build on that arrogance, you have the chairman of the Republican Party, Doyle Webb, sending out a fundraising letter that says that we have great candidates on the ballot like Asa Hutchinson, mentions no one else, and is promoting Asa, trying to raise money like the primary's already over. You have just been really, the establishment has tried to shut you down from day one here.
Well, and the irony of it all is that the president, in the president's tweet, he endorsed the very thing that he ran against. If there's ever a poster boy of the establishment, communism, little boy network, big government, taxes spend, establishment progressive, all those things that Trump got in the race to run against, the very thing that he endorsed. And, but the bottom line is, and just so that people know, I don't think any differently of President Trump. I still support him. I'm excited about what he's doing for America, and he's done a great job. I think that he probably doesn't even know who Asa Hutchinson's primary opponent is. I have not reached out and asked for President Trump's endorsement. In fact, I haven't asked. If you look and notice, I haven't asked for anyone's endorsement. I wanted to win this race because the people of Arkansas, no one else, no other influences, but because the people of Arkansas said, you know what, we've had enough, and we want to take control of our state government, of our out-of-control government. And if we win, what a sweet victory it will be. And the bottom line, Paul, is it doesn't matter whose endorsement you get. The end of this race is already written. It was written before it was ever started. That God's in control, and what's meant to be is meant to be. Yep. And I don't know if it's that Jan Morgan will be governor or not, but I know that it was definitely God's will that I got in this race. And the people of Arkansas have certainly become educated about our state as a result of my presence in the race. And in the end, that's already a victory. So
yeah, you are exactly right, and that is the perfect perspective going into this evening. That it already has been written. God knows exactly what's going to happen at the end of this. And Jan, I want to thank you for running too. I just cannot tell you how you being in this race has advanced the message of conservatism, but more importantly, has exposed what is really happening to so many more people. And this information is going to continue to spread regardless of what the outcome is tonight. But I think it's going to be close. And I think that the people need to get out. They need to go vote, and they need to see where the chips fall and let them fall where they may. But do you agree with what's going on? Then you know who to vote for. If you don't agree with what's going on, then you are the obvious anti-establishment, anti-status quo choice, and I'll give you the last word.
Yes. Well, Paul, that you have to look at the end goal. And the end goal here is that we are building a liberty machine, and it's going to take all of us. It's going to take the people of the state. It's going to take candidates. It's going to take news media outlets like yours, people who are truly looking at the end goal in mind. And this is just one step in that process, this whole race was. So we'll see what happens. But in the end, I'm still very excited. I'm feeling great about today, regardless of the outcome, and I'm excited about what the people have accomplished. And tonight, we're going to be celebrating regardless. Period.
Awesome. Jan Morgan, I appreciate it. You have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. Best of luck to you. Jan Morgan, everybody, Republican candidate for governor, who has, the establishment has really, they have tried to pull and keep her from talking this entire time. That's why Asa refused to ever debate her. That's why they tried to silence her at county committees and use these bully-like tactics. And you know what? Now, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is what the people think of all of this. It's now up to you. It's now your turn to decide. It's now your turn to go to the polls and participate in this thing we call America and our democratic republic. Go and vote. Grab 10 people. Go do this now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm urging you to vote to cap corruption in Arkansas. We've got to go. We will see you tomorrow morning. Arkansas, be safe on your way to the polls.